not shooting, anything that could reasonably cause
Lethal
death.
force.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Doesn't
So that means like a choke.
you're not allowed to choke, though, are you?
Neither
Not by
are
academy
we.
standards. No.
But I mean, like a choke is considered lethal force.
Right,
So,
but
like,
they're not allowed to do it.
But I'm saying you, like,
Oh.
if a guy comes
Yes,
up and
I understand what you're saying. Like,
they'd have to do the same
if
thing.
I got in a
necessary
fight with
to
a
shoot him.
75-pound girl, like I would probably get in trouble for like beating the shit out of her, killing her, or something, right? Because I didn't have to do that to
Well,
subdue
what I'm
her.
saying,
Probably.
here's the fucked up thing. What I'm saying is, if some 75-pound, some 90-pound stupid bitch comes freaking out and screaming
so awesome.
and trying to punch you,
Why does that never happen to me?
you would get in more
Ever.
trouble. You would get in
I've been attacked
more
by plenty of
trouble
90-pound crazy
for
bitches.
choking her
gonna call me.
unconscious and leaving her there than you would for punching her in the face 4 times. You'd get in more trouble.
How do
if
you
you
know
pun-
that for sure?
But you punched her in the face.
Ask him.
Wait.
If a girl came running at her like,
better
"Wow,"
off- you're
and
better
she
off
went
punching her.
jab cross hook cross and fucked her mouth and broke her nose and she fell over,
Right. She'd
and
be-
just like unconscious and broke a bunch of facial bones,
She'd be in less trouble if
she'd be in less trouble than if she ducked the punch, took her down, and choked her unconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it gets I know with us, it's
seen as
it's
lethal.
such a and I mean, obviously we all know it's not.
Of course,
Like one of the
but that's according to the law.
There'd be a lot-
The law
there'd be a
would
lot of
prefer
academy students left.
The law would prefer that not just a cop, but you too. The law would prefer that you take out a stick and hit that girl in the body until she stops resisting, then choke her.
That's why I was getting an argument when we talk about in the law enforcement realm about chokes, because people are like, "Oh, well, you can't choke people out." I'm like, "Well, why?" Like, just like you guys teach here. Why? It works on everybody if you do it right.
Yep.
But it's perfectly all right for me to whip out a metal rod, my baton, and hit somebody with it.
Which is crazy.
We
I'd
can
way
send-
rather get choked out
We
than
can send
whacked with
dogs
one of
after
those
people who are
things.
going to latch on and do damage.
Yes.
I can run over somebody with a car if I have to. I mean, but I
But you can't
I can't
choke
do the
them.
one thing that works on everybody
It doesn't hurt
hurt
anybody.
them.
Yeah.
It is. It's totally. That all came. I remember the incident and why that changed, because they used to teach chokes years ago, and then they had a guy.
One person does it wrong.
He actually didn't even. I don't even know if he did it wrong. What the media was like, oh, I choked him, and the guy actually, from what I understand, was told he died of a heart attack because he was on a lot of drugs and stuff, and he was like, ooh,
Sure.
all amped
Which
up
probably
stuff.
would have happened no matter what type of injury
Yeah.
you had done to him.
No, he would have survived the car, though. I think if you
Yeah.
ran him
Yeah.
over.
I know two guys that
It's
have
poor arguments. there.
either thought of that or tried it. And one of them.
And that's lower down the scale of force.
Then
Well,
rear naked choke.
considered a choke.
Imagine
The way
we
it is,
showed up, just
A
started hitting people with
3-ton
cars.
car is considered
We have
less
fucking
lethal
demolition
force than a
derby in the
fucking
academy
joke.
instead of rolling.
Jesus.
Isn't that crazy?
Deadly force is deadly force.
Do you think they'd have a lot of stats?
I
by
mean,
now?
I understand-
Like,
yeah,
you know how
but-
many chokes are going to be dealt out? This week in here, and
I mean,
how many
it's,
people are going to die?
Well, that's what I just
Nobody.
used that argument. I was at my family there for the 4th of July, and my sister-in-law comes out of nowhere. She's like, "How do you choke people out?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, this is how you can
Turn
do it."
around, let me show you.
I did. I was like, "Turn around," and then they were asking me about it, and they're like, "Well, isn't that dangerous?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "There's hundreds, thousands, hundred every year get choked out either." Professional
There's
engagements,
been
nobody
there's
dies.
been only that I've been told there's one, but I have not been able to verify it or see it. But choking death like a death related to chokes in the sport of judo since like they started keeping records in 1915 or whatever. There's none that I know of. There was a book written in either the late 80s or early 90s. There's a masterclass series, the Upon Press, this judo book series that's really cool.
Yeah.
And there's a whole book on
Upon
choking
Press.
techniques. There's a whole book on choking techniques. So the book is Shimiwaza. And in it, the guy says there's never been a death related to jiu-jitsu, and he's got the like sources in the back, right? Now, that was 20, 30 years ago, so maybe something has happened. But if it has, it's only been one, and that's over, fucking 100 years.
But what's crazy about that is like how many head trauma deaths have there been
insane.
from some form of like whether it's boxing or even now like
Yeah.
some MMA ones.
And they
but
didn't even
people
know
will still
before,
be-
like, oh, that person had a stroke. Like, it's like
Sure.
they didn't even. Up until recently, they don't.
No,
they
it's
haven't
crazy.
been like
they
connecting
just
the
happen
fact.
to have
anybody
gotten hit in the
listening to
head
this-
150
Yeah, they get hit
times.
in the head
I'll send-
3 times a week.
I wrote a medical breakdown on choking techniques and the effect on the body and physiological response and stuff like that. If anybody wants to
It
get
raises testosterone.
you can ask Bo
Getting
for it.
choked out
I'll give it
raises
to Bo.
testosterone?
Oh yeah,
I'll
give
give
it
it
to
to Bo,
me.
and then you can ask Bo for it.
Yeah,
and
sure.
he'll fucking,
Yeah.
he'll put
My
it
number
out
is
there.
555.
Yeah, 8675309.
Well, it kills me because I taught at the academy. academy, like the mechanics of the rest
The,
and stuff.
the police academy.
We'll teach. The police academy. We'll teach. Smaller people, women and small males, how to, like they're going to punch and kick and do all this stuff.
That's
I'm
not
like,
gonna do a
That's not
fucking
going to happen. Well, that's what I tell people. I'm like,
run.
I told my niece, I'm like, I could teach my niece how to do a rear naked choke, and it'll work on everybody.
Right.
I can teach her how to punch and kick. She can punch and kick me all day long. It's not going to.
It's not going to do
She's not
shit.
going to beat me.
If she can get to your back and just hold there for
Yeah.
8 seconds, that's it. Just not get shucked off for 8 seconds.
Yeah,
You know what I mean, it's of course
hold
that's a
on.
difficult thing to do, but
No, but
if
still,
she's
it's
good
more,
at that.
more likely
You're going to sleep.
It's more likely
And then she can beat you to death with a
that
stomp
they
on your
can do
head.
that. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's like you teach get to the choke and you teach run a safe distance and get your firearm. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, why are you fucking around in the middle teaching people how to leg kick?
Lawyers.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I hear you. I understand. Somebody asked me to explain it. Like, what's their perspective?
that,
And I'm
Haskell?
like, but that's why, right? Because like, okay, the reason it works is because everybody's brain need oxygenated blood. So if I'm stopping oxygenated blood or significantly reducing oxygenated blood from getting to the brain, I can create unconsciousness. And then the lawyer goes, don't you need that to live? The answer is yes, you do need that to live. Therefore,
There's
you
a
are,
continuum
you are
of death.
stopping a life-giving process. Like you are impeding
Right.
life from occurring. That is deadly force. And it's like you can't argue that it's not because I am. I mean, your brain does need oxygen to survive, and I am impeding the flow of it.
But there's got to be some statistic
You
of how
burn out.
long you have to not have it,
Sure.
isn't there?
But the
rear
problem,
naked choke,
the
it's
problem
like
that's
3-4 minutes.
no,
right?
no, no. But that's
More
the
than
problem
that.
is 30 seconds. A brain cell deprived of oxygen for 30 seconds will start to die, and there's arguments over whether or not the brain is plastic enough that it can rebuild. There was thought for a long time you couldn't. Now
Yeah,
that
but
people
that's
are
been
saying you,
disproved.
but now people are saying that you can. But still, large scale brain tissue death is not good. You know what I mean? So their argument is that 30 seconds deprived of oxygen, a brain cell dies. And there's a lot of problems with massive
I
brain
don't think
cell death.
that's accurate.
No, it is. It's. I'm telling you, it's accurate, right?
Well, I'm just saying, I think-
your 3 to 4 minute thing is what you're talking about is intake. So if you seal your
yeah, I know
mouth
what you're
shut,
talking about.
it
Yeah.
takes 3
Yeah.
to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
It takes 3 to 4 minutes for your body to cycle through
Right.
the oxygen. So now the blood that's getting to your brain has none in it.
But I think
that's
the ac-
why it takes 3 to 4
I
minutes.
think actual death, like not damage, but actual death. Like your brain's not going to die if you get if you
No,
get
no.
rear naked choke for 30 seconds. You're not.
But
gonna be
you're
dead.
not listening to what I'm saying. Like
I
brain
know,
cells
it
have to be
kills.
deprived of oxygen. A rear naked choke does not deprive them.
Exactly.
It significantly
Exactly.
reduces it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
there's 2
That's what I
arteries
was
that are
getting at.
encased inside the spine that cannot be affected by compression. There's a thing called the circle of Willis that goes around the top of the head that
Yeah.
it evenly distributes the remaining blood from the
What you
back
talking
to
about?
yeah, that evenly distributes blood from the back 2 arteries. Right.
Good one, Bob.
You're compressing the 2 front arteries,
Yeah.
which is reducing very significantly, 50%, the oxygenated blood flow to the brain. It's enough to cause unconsciousness, but it's not enough to cause death.
Right.
Right? It's not enough to cause brain cell death because the brain is getting blood.
Yeah.
It's just not getting enough to be functional. It's like turning the dimmer
Yeah.
down
As
on a
you
computer,
said, yeah,
so
it's like
it
a
can't.
dimmer switch, yeah.
It's a dimmer switch on a computer that makes it low enough that you can't run programs, but not so low that it loses memory.
That's the
or
only
whatever.
way to cut off all of them. A noose, like an actual,
No, a
like all
noose-
the way around,
a
or you
noose-
still
a
can't.
noose
You have to
wouldn't-
break
a noose
the
wouldn't
neck or
cut. A
something.
noose wouldn't cut
So
the
you
2 that are
can't
inside
seal
the spine.
all of them at the same time.
You cannot occlude all 4 arteries at the same time from outside manual pressure.
That's why when someone gets, it's not necessarily just being paralyzed, but when someone gets in a severe accident, they got to be careful. Like there isn't any occlusion going on inside, like a fracture.
Well,
or
the
something.
problem is you can fracture the spine, and the spine
Right.
can shift, and then
Exactly.
the pressure from the
Yeah.
spine can occlude those arteries.
That's why they have to
But
be
that's,
careful of
you know,
the whole fucking.
when people get hung and they die, like obviously if they're dropping from a
They
significant
suffocate,
height,
yeah.
well, if they're dropping from a significant height, it breaks their
breaks.
neck.
Yeah.
That's what
And then that
it's designed
stops
to
their
do.
heart, right? Like that stops their heart. But if their neck doesn't break, then they got a slow death. They pass out in 8 to 10 seconds from the front arteries, but death doesn't occur for another 3 to 4 minutes until their body.
But if you're passed out, who
they
cares?
suffocate.
Of course,
Yeah.
You don't
right?
know.
But
They're
like,
just-
but that's the
breathe.
trip. You know what I mean? So it's like the reason that people die from chokes. I mean, one, there's the heart attack aneurysm problem, but that exists no matter what, right? That exists like if you punch somebody in the stomach and they're prone to have a heart attack or an aneurysm.
Yeah,
they're gonna
probably
have a
any
fucking
kind of
heart
physical
attack.
stress if they're already at that point.
If they
of-
take a real difficult shit,
Well,
they're going to have an aneurysm.
I know-
maybe
That's
not
what's
to that
gonna
degree,
happen.
but
I know some nurses. They tell them not to touch their carotid arteries. You know, when they're doing any type of manipulation, because that can cause an aneurysm. Not an aneurysm. Yeah, an aneurysm. Because it'll plaque loosens up inside their
That's not an
arteries.
aneurysm. That's a
I'm
stroke.
trying to think.
I'm sure
Yeah,
right now
stroke.
Ashley's
It's another
freaking
one.
out at
That's a
her
No,
phone
that's
or device she's
No, I mean,
listening on.
if
with the
there's a
correct
blockage,
answer.
that creates a stroke. But
Yeah, that's,
an aneurysm is when it ruptures. A stroke
yeah, a
is when
rupture.
it's
Well,
blocked.
something goes up, gets dislodged, goes up, and causes some fucking
It's a
damage.
stroke. Yeah, but it's like. But anyway, the point is that when people die from that, it's very rarely that, but
Could
it
be
does
both.
happen. What usually happens, the thing that most often causes deaths from chokes that are done improperly or followed up improperly.
Usually airway, isn't
Or
it?
Yeah,
embolism.
their
Cut off
airway
the
gets
airway.
an embolism. Their airway gets closed
Yeah.
because the choke was done improperly. They pass out because of the arterial occlusion, but they don't continue to get air. So they go passed out,
Yeah, and they
then they stay passed out, and then their body's cycling through, but their heart rate's probably pretty high, so then they cycle through fast, and then they die.
Yeah.
And then the other one is just manual compression. Like people will choke somebody out, and then they'll call the cops,
Like,
and
stay
then they're
on top of
scared of the guy, so they like sit on him, pin him, and 3 or 4 fucking people
The diaphragm
kneel
isn't
on
strong
him and
enough
shit,
to-
and he's unconscious, and he can't consciously expand his
That's
chest.
called. What is that called again? It's called
Suffocation.
something.
Well, it's
No, there's some fancier term for it.
well, it's postural
Positional
asphyxiation.
asphyxiation.
Yeah,
Positional
yeah.
asphyxiation.
Yeah, positional.
Yeah.
Technically, back in the day, it was called burking. When you did it on purpose to kill someone, it's called burking.
When you
That
did it
seems
on
pretty
purpose.
brutal.
Yeah, it was like an old school
They
torture
used to do
method.
that
Like if you
weird
read
shit.
like the history.